Welcome to the Simply Be Found Huddle. You have Dean and Rob, and we have our guest today, Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Just great, Rob. I really appreciate you having me today.
Well, we're excited to have you here. So can you tell everybody kind of about you? And I know you have your book that came out. When did that get published?
It was published about this time last year, or maybe a little later, maybe May of last year. And it's doing very well on Amazon. We have over 100 5-star ratings, which is very difficult to do.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm very well pleased with it, and the sales have been pretty strong. We're approaching 5,000 in the first year. That's pretty good. I expect it will do a lot better once the word gets out.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So give us a little bit about what the book's about, Dennis, and tell us what you were trying to accomplish with your book, so we can kind of dive into a little bit with how this will relate to small businesses.
Okay, Dean, I moved to Dallas-Fort Worth area 35 years ago, and I had been dabbling in real estate for 25 years at that time. So when I got to Dallas-Fort Worth, it was like a kid in the candy store. There was just so much that I could do, and I became a really successful real estate investor. And I wanted to get better, but there were no real estate investor groups in Arlington. Now, there were some in Fort Worth and there were some in Dallas, but the Metroplex is big. I mean, if you drive to Dallas and there's traffic, it may take you an hour and a half both ways. That's 3 hours. The same way with Fort Worth. So I started a group in Arlington, the AREA, and it really grew. I mean, it was a very successful group, very popular. So I thought, well, if I'm going to get better at real estate investing, I should teach classes. And then if I want to learn about short sales or subject twos or trust or whatever, if I teach a class on it, I'm going to really study hard so that I can make the presentation and answer the questions. So I did that for a while. And one day, one of the members came up to me. His name was Mike. And he said, Dennis, I'm about to retire. And I've watched you invest, and I want to do what you do, so I'm going to let you mentor me, and I'll pay you. And I said, well, Mike, that's very flattering, and I appreciate that, but I'm not interested in teaching one-on-one. I don't have time. I have my real estate groups. I have my real estate business, and I'm just not interested. And he looked at me funny, and he said, Dennis, you didn't hear what I said. He said, I'm going to retire in a couple of weeks, and you're going to teach me how to do what you're doing. He said, let me take you out to dinner, and we'll discuss it. So we went out to eat. And after we finished, he had on a suit like this, and he reached in his pocket, pulled out a checkbook, and handed it to me. And he said, here, fill this out. I said, do you mean the amount? He said, yes. So I thought, okay, I'll do that, and this will finish this. So I put an amount down there that I knew that he wouldn't pay. So I handed it back to him. He tore the check out and signed it and never even looked at the amount and handed it to me. And that's when I started teaching. I started teaching, and I taught and taught and taught and taught. I had over 400 students, and they blew the balls off. I mean, they really did well. And when the word got out, I started getting invited to speak at REI meetings and expos. And once on a podcast, the host said, Dennis, why are your students so successful? There's all these gurus out here, but your students just really take off. And I said, well, I haven't changed their habits. You know, if they can form the habit, the success habits, they will become successful. And then he said, well, what's the number one success habit that you would have our listeners do? And I said, well, they need to form the habit of reading something positive every day that will move them toward their goal, their ultimate goal. So after that podcast, I thought, you know, that was really the right answer. Wouldn't it be great if there were a tool of some kind to help people form the habit of reading something positive every day, moving them toward their goal? And then it hit me. It was almost like I was jarred. I mean, pow. Dennis, you've been collecting success books for 50 years and poems and short stories. You can put all these things together and people can form the habit regardless of the time slot. If they're really busy and they have 5 minutes between a meeting, they can read a poem. If they go home and they're exhausted and, oh, I forgot to read, they can pick the book up and read a quote. It takes 5 seconds to read a quote. They go to sleep thinking about a really powerful quote. So I thought, well, I've got all this. I started journaling back in '75 when I met Jim Rohn. That was before he was famous. He was just a guy, you know. But he insisted that you journal everything. So I started doing all that, and I had to journal. And once computers came out, I transferred everything over to a computer. So I thought, I'll put all this together, and in 2 months, I'll have a book, and people can use it to form the habit. And I started working on it. I worked on it every day. And 6 years later, last year, this book came out. And I mean, I put a lot of money and time and effort in it, but the people who have read it really love it. I mean, people come into my office and, you know, I'll grill them about, you know, what they think about the book, but it's being accepted really well. And it's powerful. I mean, the stories that I put in there were good before I put them in there. So there wasn't no question about whether the book was going to be good. I had 100 short stories that moved me, and I used them with my students, but I didn't have room to put 100 in there. So I narrowed it down to about 35 stories. And the way I narrowed it down was this. If I read the story and I didn't get a tear in my eye, I didn't put that story in there. So I have 35 cathartic stories that will shake your boots. You know, when I first started in business, the company that I started with gave me 3 books: Think and Grow Rich, Success, the Glenn Bland Method, and The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ogmandino. And when I finished reading those books, I was a different person. I had never seen a success or a self-help motivational book in my life. And when I finished reading those books, I was exuberant. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to get out there and change the world. And so after that, it was like a drug. After that, I thought, well, I have to have more books. Well, in '75, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't a Google. I mean, if you wanted to find something, you had to go talk with people. So I searched out successful people and said, hey, what you reading? What books have really helped you? And so I read a bunch of books, but only a few of them really got me super motivated, gave me that feeling, you know. So I kept a list of those. And that list is in the back of this book. Now, you couldn't pay somebody to read for 50 years and come up with just the ones that really charge you. So this is a powerful book, and it's going to change a lot of people's lives. I heard Napoleon Hill right after Think and Grow Rich. He was being interviewed. It wasn't on the video, it was on the film, you know. And he said, well, I just wrote a new book, Think and Grow Rich, and it's helping a lot of people become successful, and it's going to help millions and millions more. And he knew that back in whenever it was the 40s or the 50s when that recording was made. And I know that this book is going to help a lot of people. You know, I didn't write it to make $1 million. I wrote it to help 1 million people. So it's already started.
Let's kind of go somewhere with this, Dennis. Okay, so like, it really sounds really great. I mean, journaling is one of those big things for a lot of people do that, like you're talking about. How would you say this is going to help a small business become more successful? What is the premise? Wonderful stories, a great background on this, but let's talk a little bit about where do you think this will help a small business to go? I mean, a business owner, entrepreneur. Let's kind of talk about, you know, that one habit you were talking about. Why is that so important for a small business owner?
A small business owner, look, an entrepreneur's mind goes in 1,000 different directions. Every single day they see 20 things.
What?
Right. Every day they see 20 or 30 things that they think, oh, well, that could work. That could, we could take that and make money on it. That the key is focus. So the book makes you focus. There's a picture. I don't know if you can see the picture. You see the picture of the lamp on the front?
Yep.
The Aladdin's lamp kind of thing?
It's Aladdin's lamp. Okay. Yep. So it's a story about a young man who found an old lamp, and when he was cleaning it, he rubbed it, and a genie came out and said, "What do you want?" In other words, the genie made him decide what he wanted. This book makes you decide what you want. So in a small business, you can have 50 goals. I know I run a small business. I've had as many as 6 or 8 going on at one time. I finally figured out the thing you focus on is the one that's really going to work for you. That's right. So this book makes you focus. How can you read something positive every day that moves you toward your goal if you do not have a definite goal? So in a small business, the number one thing that's going to make you successful faster than anything else is to pick that one thing. It's like that book, The One Thing, So if you can pick out one thing and focus on it and read something positive and motivational about that every single day, you're going to get there a lot faster. And the proof is in the pudding, because I had over 400 students that went, most of them from nothing to becoming millionaires in real estate using simple principles. So, I mean, I've been a small business owner for over 50 years. And I can tell you, if I'd have had this when I first started, I'd be a lot more successful now than I am.
Now, in one of your stories, Dennis, if I remember correctly, from my research I did quickly before hopping on, and before I looked at everything yesterday, so I slept since then, seen about 1 million different things since. But I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you having a tree and something about planting a seed. Am I thinking about that right, or am I thinking wrong?
Well, I'm not sure that was one of mine, but
okay.
I do use that example, that the things that you plant in your mind will replicate. So whatever you are thinking about and focusing on, it's just planting a seed in your mind, and it's going to multiply.
It might have been a thumbnail on another podcast you were on, or a video. If I remember correctly, it had a seed and it had a tree that was on it. So it's probably using your principle from that and then having it there, which I thought was kind of interesting, and where I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit as we talk about our system. So I don't know if you've looked at us at all for Simply Be Found.
About like you looked at me.
I think that's what I was assuming. At least you're not like, well, I did all this research. I watched all of your huddles, and I spent hours doing this, and you didn't prep for shit for me. But, so we talk about a tree inside of organic. So Simply Be Found, we have a way to be able to work with over 1,000 networks. So we talk about that is like planting a seed. So you have the organic piece that has to be at the bottom. That's where all of your directories, all of your business data lives. The tree trunk inside of there is the website. And then you have branches at the top that could be social media, your blog, and all of that. But it's about a lot of the stuff inside of small business, and using a tool like ours for simplybefound.com is very much the same concept of going in and reading a quote every day. You have to make a habit out of it. So right. I think there's a lot to that. You have to have a habits inside a business to be able to make sure you do it. And you have to make sure it's good habits, not bad habits.
Exactly. I had a medical problem back in 2018. It was serious. And when I came out of the hospital, I couldn't even stand up for more than 3 seconds. And so I made it one of my goals to become healthy again, to not look like I had that problem, to be able to think clearly, to be able to communicate, to be able to do things with my hands and feet. And so I wanted to form success habits in health. And one of the habits I formed was that I walk so many steps every day, thousands of steps every single day. Well, when I first started the habit, I dreaded it. You know, my wife would walk me down to the end of the cul-de-sac and hold my arm. Then I got to where I could walk the block, and then I'd walk a mile and then 2 miles. And after 6 months, I no longer dreaded it. I didn't look forward to it. But then, you know, I got a little dog to go with me, and I found that if I put my headphones on, I could learn while I was walking. And now, after 6 years, 7 years, I really look forward to walking every day. And I was on a speaking engagement last week, and I was so exhausted. You know, I'd been working all day and traveling, and I laid down in the hotel, and I thought, I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And right before I closed my eyes, I thought I hadn't walked. And I got up out of the bed and put on my clothes and walked thousands of steps, even though I had to get up early the next morning, because it was a habit and I couldn't have slept, you know. So if you can form a positive habit, like reading something positive every day that moves you toward your ultimate goal, that's powerful. And if you can get over the hump of where you dread doing it or you forget or whatever, and that's what the book does, it just gets you over the hump. But that's a big hump. And I mean, it will have a tremendous impact regardless of what your business is. You know, if you want to become a doctor, it'll help you become, you know, read about medicine. If you want to become an attorney, read about the law. One of the stories in the books about Abraham Lincoln, most people don't know he spent most of his years as a successful attorney. You know, when he was grown, he was an attorney. Well, he didn't have a first grade education. You know, he didn't have any money. His parents were illiterate. He could barely speak the English language. But when he found the law, he realized this is what I was meant to be. And I'm going to pass the Illinois bar. Now, that was ridiculous. He couldn't have possibly done that. He was broke. He didn't have any education. He could barely speak English. You should read some of the things he was saying, the way he phrased them. And he did it. And now we know Lincoln is a great president. But had that not happened, had he not set that goal and accomplished that, we wouldn't even know the name Lincoln.
So basically what you're saying is you got to start the first step. You know, I'm going to use your analogy of walking and habits. You've got to take that first step. You've got to start doing it. How long do you think it takes for you to develop that good habit? I mean, you know, I know some people, they catch on to it. Some people say 3 weeks. You know, how do you encourage business owners to start making good choices and good habits for being I mean, because I know so many small businesses, they get really negative about things. This is bad. We're going in a recession. We're doing this. How do you help that positive attitude? Because, you know, positivity creates good things, yes, in my opinion.
Well, the first thing you have to do is change your mindset. If you're negative, you're going to have problems. I'm writing another book called The Laws of Nature for Success. And the very first law of nature for success is you got to get your mind right. If you don't have a positive mental attitude, you're going against nature. You know, I met with a man named Jack McConaughey back in 75. He's the one that gave me those books. And he started telling me, he said, Dennis, there's these laws that if you follow them, everything's going to go well for you in your life. It'll be easy. You'll make money. People will admire you. Everything's going to be wonderful. But if you go against these laws, you're going to have a hard time. You know, you're going to bump into problems every way you turn. And I said, stop, Jack. Where's that book? I mean, I want to read that book. You know, the laws of nature. Tell me about those laws. I want to know. And he said, well, no, it's not in one book. It's in a lot of books. And it's a life study. And so when I left that office that day, I thought, there needs to be a book. I'm sure there is one. So I spent the next 20 years looking. And there wasn't. I mean, there's a lot of laws of nature a lot of laws that pertain to business and health and all kinds of things, but there's not a specific set that says this is for getting from where you are to where you want to be. And so I'm finishing up that book. I've already got it written. I'm polishing it right now. It's called The Laws of Nature for Success. And the first one is you have to have your mind right. You have to believe that what you're doing, first you have to have a focus. The very first thing is you got to know what is it you want. You got to believe that you can accomplish it. And you need to have the will to sustain getting knocked down over and over again, because that's part of the law. Is you have to pass the test. Nature is going to say, are you worthy of accomplishing this? And it's going to knock you down 2 or 3 times just to see if you get up.
So what you're saying though is positivity is is a law of nature. You're saying that you because not everybody's positive. You know the people that you go, how are you doing this morning? Oh, I had a bad day. I got up. I stubbed my toe. Oh, you've had those people around, and you try to avoid those people. Do you say avoid those people, or just be positive and seek out other positive people?
Avoid them at all costs, Dean. You can't let. You know what happens if you have a tub and you put crabs in the tub? You put 20 crabs in the tub. You know what'll happen? One crab will reach up to try to get out, and the others will pull him back in. So none of them ever get out. It's impossible. You don't want to be in a tub with a bunch of crabs.
Okay.
Really, you don't.
No.
If somebody, look, you said there's a lot of people that are negative. Dean, there's a lot of people who are failures.
Yep.
Right? There's a few negative people who made it, but there's a few people that win the lottery. That's just, it's just luck if they make it.
It's luck and it's statistics at the very end. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day that was, have you ever heard of Vanessa Van Edwards?
I'm not sure.
She does a lot of stuff. She's wrote a few books. She's does a lot of stuff on behavioral science.
I see.
She goes, if you want to know your true friends, they're the ones that are happy for you. When you have something exciting happen, they're the ones that your cheerleaders are happy for you, and they share the same excitement.
Yes.
So to be able to tell if you have a true friend or not, you have to ask, are they happy when you do something that's good for you that doesn't involve them? And she goes on inside of that podcast talking about different aspects there, but she comes back to it and she goes, now I've got a set of friends. I don't necessarily, they're fun to go out with. They're fun to go do certain things with. And I keep those friends for those things. And they're always going to be the ones that also pick anything in my professional life completely apart. And they're not happy for me. So they're not a true friend. But yet there's someone to have fun with. So they bring a different need to the table. And she goes, but I do call them when I want them to pick the hell out of a new business idea that I'm about ready to do, because they're going to be negative about it. They're great for that.
Yep. That's true.
And I was like, that's pretty damn good.
So, Dean, I didn't answer your question about how long it takes to form a habit.
Uh-huh.
It depends on the amount of desire that you have. If you have a burning desire, you can form the habit today. I mean, if you have a truly burning desire, when I was in high school, I was a terrible student. I mean, you couldn't have found a worse student. I hated school. I didn't take my books home. I was dyslexic. I had ADD. Only thing I wanted to be was out. I didn't want to be in that classroom. I didn't want to talk to that teacher. I dreaded going. I told my mother I was sick. I did everything I could to avoid being at school. The only thing I liked was being in the band, and I liked playing the drums. And that was it. Any other part of the day, I was miserable. We were broke because my father was a disabled veteran. We lived on a veteran's pension, 60% veteran's pension, which was really, really low. We had no money. I had poor grades, almost flunked the 9th grade. What I lived for was summer school. Summer. When school got out, I was free. That's what I live for. And when I graduated, it was going to be free forever. That's how I felt. I had no desire to go to college. I didn't even know anybody that went to college. People from my town didn't go to college. We were all too poor. So one day I went to school and they said, we're going to have assembly. And I thought, oh, assembly, no class, go to assembly. So we went to the auditorium. There was a college band there. And I thought, oh, that's okay. They played their spring concert. And I thought, well, that's okay. Then the band director turned around and said, brought a little surprise for you. We have our marching drum section. They want to put on a little exhibition. Now, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Drumline.
Yes, I have.
In the 90s or right after the turn of the century. Okay. Those guys were doing that in the 60s. I mean, they were so good. I mean, they were playing and dancing and they put on sunglasses. I mean, they put on a show and the whole school just went nuts. They were jumping up, down, clapping. And I went to my band director and said, I got to be a part of that. I have got to be. And he looked at me and he said this. He said, Dennis, to get into that, you got to go to college. And with your grades, they're not going to let you in college. And I said, if I change my grades, can I get in that group? He said, well, you're not going to get into it unless you do. So I went from D's and F's to A's and B's. And 3 years later, I was at Jacksonville State University. And the following year, I was in that drum section. And the following year, I was a section leader. Now, when I told my teachers I was going to college, they laughed. They thought, you think you're going to go to college? And it was funny because I didn't have any money. I didn't have any education. There was no way. But once my mind got set on that thing that I wanted and I'd give anything for it, I instantly, and not in a few weeks, I instantly had the habit of taking my books home, of reading, of doing my homework, of talking with the teachers. It was instant. So if you get your mind right and you have something that you can really focus on and you have a burning desire to get there, you're 90% there. I mean, that's like taking a giant step. You don't have to worry about forming a habit. The habit will form themselves. Just get out of the way.
Well, you had to discover a goal. You had to figure out a goal for yourself. I mean, you're not going to develop good habits unless you have a desired outcome.
Exactly.
So you have to make
Let's be a light of passion in there.
Right.
Well, look, how does an ant know what to do? You know, they all do what they're supposed to do.
They match whatever they see everybody else doing.
Yeah,
well, they do exactly what they're supposed to do, but there's no ant teacher. No, they know instinctively. Well, people are the same way. They just don't listen. People get desires and they think, oh, I'd love to do this. I'd love to become an engineer because building roads and doing all this, and then their butts get in the way. That's the biggest thing.
Gotcha.
I'd love to do this, but I don't have any money. But I don't have the contacts. But I have the education. So if people would just shut up and move their butts and listen, they have a purpose of being here. And once the purpose is revealed to them, if they move in that direction, they'll get excited. And all of a sudden, there's no such thing as work anymore. It's fun. You know, if you really are going in the direction you're supposed to be going in and doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, life is fun. You can't wait to get up and go meet the challenge. Right. You know, see your staff, tell them what to do. Look at the figure.
So I don't have it behind me. I don't know where it's at right now, but I have a little thing that says success comes in cans, not in can nots. It's an old can that is in there. So you have to remove the negative. Well, it's not really the negativity. It's your own roadblocks are the problem.
Yeah.
And small business owners have a tendency to do that to themselves a little bit. Because I'm trying to relate this back to small businesses, saying, we got the people that are successful. They look for positive things. They do good things. Then you have the people that are always looking for it. I can't get there. I don't know this. So if they don't know that, you're saying they can teach themselves by forming good habits and positive thoughts.
Well, the first thing they got to do is kill the ants in their life. I mean, if you can, make that part of your affirmation every morning, your ants are this: any negative thought sequence. When a negative thought comes in your mind, you have to kill it because it's killing you. You can't think negatively. You can't. You just have, and that's a hard habit to form because it's not getting you somewhere. But if you make it part of your daily,
everything around us, Dennis, is negative. You watch the news,
right?
It's negative. You don't see the positive story because that isn't what sells.
It doesn't sell. I mean, during going into that during the 80s. I guess you guys would probably know more than I would in this because I'm now going before I was born. But I think it started probably in the 60s. It got a little bit more in the 70s. I guess it would have because you had, I believe Genie and all that different stuff. So 60s, 70s, but the 80s were totally all about sex sold. It was about being positive, rock and roll, and just sex was all over. I mean, you were taking more clothes off on TV than they've ever been taken off. And then all of a sudden, you couldn't take any more off. So where did they go back to? Well, they went back to the same stuff during the Depression of negativity inside of the world of marketing. Because negativity it brings a sense of, just like sex, it brings a whole entire sense of control, and you can narrate where you want someone to go. If you watch the news, it's all negative. They're not going to share anything positive.
There's an antidote. There's an antidote for negativity. It's called the G vitamin. If you take the G vitamin every day, you can't be negative. The G vitamin makes you live longer. It lowers your blood pressure. It makes you healthier. People like you better. You have a better mood. You don't get disease as fast. And the G vitamin is gratitude. You can't be negative and grateful at the same time. So if you want to stop being negative, make a list of all of the things you're grateful for, and then add to it every single day. And when you feel those negative thoughts coming in, start thinking about the things that make you happy. Start thinking about, your loved ones, your health, that you can breathe, that you live in a free country, that you've got good friends, and it goes on and on and on. And all of those, most of those are free things. You don't have to have a big bank account to be happy. Abraham Lincoln said, "A fellow's about as happy as he decides to be." And that's the truth. One of the quotes in the book says, if you want to be happy, be happy. You get to decide. Do you want to be happy or not? Well,
it's easy to put on a smile and make people feel good around you. And I think business owners, when they Rob and I go to leads groups, and they're always, the people that are there are always so positive. I mean, they're business owners that are positive. And I think positive influence helps you to be positive and be grateful for what you have. And sharing ideas and thoughts, but not being the boohoo, the boobies, if you will. I'm a beekeeper, so that's an old joke. If the bees go boo, you don't want to be over in the hive because they're going to get after you. But, the thing is positivity helps everybody grow. It makes you feel better. I mean, it's really easy to smile. It takes a lot more work to be unhappy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there that do that.
There is.
Well, they get in the habit of being unhappy, but you get to choose your habits. So if you're unhappy all the time, change your habit. Decide to be happier. And one of the ways to do that, of the 7 secrets of success, we talked about the first one. The 6th one is to form great alliances. Like, we're talking and we're on the same wavelength. we agree with each other. Everything's, we want to be positive. We want to help people. We want to move forward. Well, that's great alliances. And avoid bad alliances. People that pull you down, you got to get them out of your life as fast as you can. And that should be a habit too. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't love your family. You're going to have family members that are that way. You can love them, but you don't have to be around them. you can go in a different direction.
Hey, I'm proof of that.
That's why I always said at the kids' table, because the adults would make me crazy because they'd be all negative about stuff. The kids are at least having a good time being positive over there. And, so that's an inside joke between Rob and I. We're told we can't sit at the big boys' table with what we do. And so we always said the kids' table is more innovative and they're more positive and they're more fun to be around.
Right.
I've always said I always wanted to stay a Toys R Us kid. I said that to my girls the other day. They looked at me and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "That's right." it was around when my 9-year-old was born, but you were a baby then. Then it shut down. So I mean, you don't know what a Toys R Us kid is.
That's funny. Oh, that's great.
It really is. I mean, the thing is, we talk about habits and things that happen. You and I, Dennis, are a little older than Rob, but I had a teacher in the early 70s, and she had this thing up, and she called them chocolates. Her name was Mrs. Woodham, and if any of her family ever listens to this, I hope she really made a big influence on me, because I was in, 6th grade, I think, or something like that, and she put these things up called chocolates. And every day there was a positive quote on there that you had to memorize, and then we'd take a test on these positive quotes. So she was trying to, back in the early 70s, create this positive habit with people of doing things. I mean, and to this day, I still enjoy reading a good quote. I'll go find something that's positive or inspirational or whatever it is that helps me for that day, maybe.
And Dean, what if every teacher did that? Do you think that would make a difference? What if every teacher, wouldn't that make a powerful difference? So here's an idea. The last third of this book is positive quotes. I mean, it's page after page after page of quotes that I've collected over 50 years. What if you gave this book to the teachers you know? This is a great gift for anybody, but there's certain people that will help more than others, pastors and teachers, people that have the ear of young people, or if you want to give it for a graduation gift, someone that's about to graduate from high school to college. I'm so excited about the book, and I believe in it so much that I would like to give a free copy of the ebook to everyone that's listening in to your podcast, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah. If you just give us the address for that.
Okay. They go to realimpactbook.com. and scroll down to the bottom where it says podcast attendee. Click on that, put in their name and email, and they'll get a download. They don't have to do anything else. Now, they will not be put on a mailing list. There is a link there that says, when you write other books, let us know. And if you click on that, the only time you'll ever hear from me is when I finish the Laws of Nature or Real Impact 2 or something. You'll get an email and say, hey, I've got another book if you're interested. But if you don't click on that, the only thing you'll get is a download. And as soon as you do that, before this podcast is over, you can have the ebook. And, I sell it for $8.95. So it's a $9 value. You're getting it for free with no strings. And the reason I'm doing that is just to get the word out, because once you read it, you're going to think, oh, well, this would help my cousin because he's kind of negative. or my grandson is about to graduate.
I have family members, Dennis. I don't think you'll ever help.
Well, there are some people that are,
That's like saying you're going to make, as a business owner, you're going to make everybody happy every time. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, my famous story on that is a lady that we pissed off in the furniture business for our family business, and she got so upset. She left. She came back. She had signs all over her car.
Oh my.
And she parked out front. Now, it increased our business. More people started coming in because they're like, what is wrong with her? And then they look around and our sales went up. And I remember the day she was packing up all of her signs from her car and she was going to go home. She did this for like a month almost. And my grandfather went out there and he went, where are you going? She goes, well, apparently it's not working. You're still here. And he goes, I'd like to pay you to stay.
That's great.
You're the best advertising we've had. But you'll never make everybody happy. No. I mean, you just can't. It's impossible.
That's true. That's true. Like the ratings on this book, go to Amazon and read the reviews. And so I have over like 113 something. Well, there's like 3 reviews that there's like one star and 1 3-star, and then 110 5-stars. So you can't please everybody. Yeah, I mean, there's no way.
No. And so in business that happens too. You're going to have somebody that's not going to be happy with you, right. And you just have to take the positive side, the upbeat side, and say, right. It's just the way it is. And I'm sorry, we weren't a good fit. I mean, that's really what it is if I'm not a good fit, unless I did something horrible to you, it's just usually not a good fit. For some reason, their brain is wired different than your brain and the way you perceive it or whatever,
Exactly.
There was a guy that used to work for us way back in the day, going back to the family furniture business. But he used to always say, "There's always an ugly person for another ugly person. There's a match out there for everybody, no matter what." I never knew what that guy meant until I got older, and I'm like, "There we are."
That's funny. I never thought of that.
He was probably He was probably. I was probably 13 at the time. He was probably in his 60s. He'd come in and he'd just do light work, and he was a neat guy, an old guy for me back then. But now it's not so old. But it's one of those things to where I never understood that. He would say that, well, there's an ugly person that matches somebody. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? But I mean, you have to have it to where, I mean, you can't be perfect for every single person. It's creating those good habits to be able to get yourself over it. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that probably could really enjoy your book, Dennis, and get a lot from it. Do you know when your new book's going to be coming out? Do you have a projected date yet?
I have 5 books on real estate. One of them's already published. It's called The Royal Flush. The next one is coming out at the end of this month. It's how to get started investing in real estate. Then there's the 5 M's, which is the skills. That one's coming out the next month. And then 66 ways to find great deals. And then all the money you'll ever need. So those are the real estate books. The next book I have on success and motivation is called The Laws of Nature for Success. And getting the book finished is one thing. Getting it edited and formatted and uploaded, that can take a year. So the book is finished. I'm polishing it now. And then I have the 7 secrets coming out. So the best thing to do if you're interested in my books is just go to Amazon and type in Dennis J. Henson and see what's available.
Okay. Are you on Audible as well?
Yes.
And do you read your own books, or did you hire someone to read your book?
When I was working on these books, I did my very best to make them quality. So I got the best reader that I've ever heard. And he is just, every time somebody gets the audiobook and I talk with them, they go crazy. They say, oh, wow, this guy, he has a radio voice. He's kind of like a Paul Harvey or an Earl Nightingale. He has one of those voices where I had one person leave a review and said, I couldn't stop listening because the guy that was reading, he wouldn't let me go. So, the audiobooks are good. I have a paperback and this hardcover edition. I was on a podcast with a book publisher who prints book. He does the whole thing. And he held his book up in front of his audience and he said, Dennis, this is the nicest book I've ever held in my hand. Well, I used to own a printing company. So I know what the best paper is. I know the best color separation. I know the best binding and the best cover stock. I mean, this is a quality gift. If you give it to somebody, they're going to keep it forever because it'll go in their bookshelf. And 30 years from now, they'll pull it out and they'll say, oh, yeah, John gave me this. And they'll open it up and remember Dan or Rob or whoever gave it to them. So it's a great legacy gift. But it's more than just a nice book, though. It is a powerful book that's going to move you. That's why I'm giving away the free ebook. If you read it, you're going to say, oh, my God, this is going to help a lot of people, and you're going to give it to other people.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad that Rob asked about the audiobook because Rob and I stare at computer screens all day long. And I mean, so we listen to our books a lot, and then we hopefully,
I listen to them when I walk.
A good audiobook that you like, sometimes you'll go buy the hardcover just so you have it in print, kind of thing. Because sometimes the electronic world gets a little fleeting, and it's hard to keep it organized. It's hard to keep it in place at times. At least for me, anyway. Rob's way more organized than I am on that stuff. But
I mean, I digitally organize all my stuff inside of its little compartment. I am getting a bookshelf that's going to be behind me soon. I just have to put it together. I shouldn't say I'm getting it. I got it for my birthday. It's sitting upstairs. I just have to bring it downstairs and put it together. But, all that free time I have. I
have this wonderful bookshelf behind me that my dad and I made when I went off to college. One weekend we built this thing, we made this, and I still keep it, but I don't keep a book on it because it's a little rickety because it worked well for college, but it didn't work well for some other things. But that's why I hang on to that. But I don't have a bookshelf that has books on it hardly anymore.
No, I mean, I think it's for me. I mean, I go back to my audiobooks. I mean, heck, I even have How to Win Friends and Influence People on audio.
When I walk, I listen to audios. Most of those old books, The Secret of Success, I'm listening to that right now. Wallace Wattles' book, Think and Grow Rich. You can get them all and listen to them while you're walking. They've all been, somebody's recorded them. So it's a lot of fun. You learn a lot by doing those.
And I've done a lot now where I do the switch where I have a ton of Audible credits. I think I've got 12. I haven't bought a book I bought one a while back and I didn't get it all the way done because it was basically like his first version that he had. But I apparently just needed money and republished it and changed a couple things. But I was like, it's almost identical. It is boring. But it was one of those things to where I listen to more podcasts now than I almost do audiobooks in a lot of ways, because if I hear that same person over and over and how it's brought up in conversation sinks into my brain almost more than the book does in some aspects.
Yep. It's planting seeds in your brain.
There you go.
It really
is.
I
mean, it's one of those things to where my brain's all over the place. So there's times, but then I'll go on a trip like I'm going on, and I'll listen probably to 2 or 3 books the whole entire time I'm gone. That's when I'll consume my books, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be on my podcast kick.
But like your book, Dennis, it's a self-help. It's a positive book, and even if you only walk away with one thing that's positive about it, it's worth it. I mean, that's the problem with, you may listen to a book and you have a whole philosophy, but you may come away with 1 or 2 ideas that's going to make your brain work better and be better for your person and your growth.
Dean, you just hit the nail on the head. That's what the book is about. It says in the front, this book is not meant to be read from cover to cover. It wouldn't do you any good. It'd be like picking the Bible up and reading it from cover to cover. You wouldn't get much out of it. Right?
And see, a book like that makes sense to have a paperback of it, because that means you can open it up and where you land on is where the universe sent you to for that day.
Exactly.
There you go. I like that.
This book is meant to be contemplated. In the 5th century, a group of monks came up with a thing called Lectio Divina, where they wanted to get closer to the scriptures. So they would read a scripture silently Then they would imagine themselves as part of the scripture. Then they would read it out loud. And then for the rest of the day, they would contemplate that single scripture. On a podcast one day, I was talking about the book, and he said, that sounds like Lectio Divina. And I said, well, what is that? So then I looked it up. And that's exactly what this book is meant. You're not supposed to read a lot. You're supposed to read quality. When something strikes you, open it up and you think, whoa, that's powerful. Don't move on. Contemplate that. Let that seed take root in your mind and grow. And you'll become a totally different person in a very short time.
Exactly. So
that makes sense. And I think you lose that from audiobooks since you listen from one part to the whole entire other. It's hard to skip around and know what you've listened to and what you haven't listened to.
The good part about the audiobook and this is full of short stories. And with the audiobook, if you want to just listen for, I think the longest one's about 35 minutes. So you can listen for 35 minutes. And if you want to continue, you listen to another short story that's 8 minutes, or another one that's 6, or a poem that's 2. Yeah. So it will fit whatever your schedule is, which is perfect for forming the habit. And it's a fun book to read. So you don't really even realize you're forming the habit, although it's your goal to form a habit, but it's a fun goal. It makes it pleasant. Where learning to form the habit of walking or running, that's not necessarily pleasant. After you form the habit, it's okay. A habit is something that you do without thinking. So how long does it take to do that? Well, it may take people years to do that, or maybe take them a week. Or if they have a burning desire, maybe they'll have the habit that, the day they walk in the door. It just depends on where your mind is.
No, that totally makes sense. And Dennis, to kind of recap so everybody knows where to go to get your book, can you share that one more time?
realimpactbook.com, and they can scroll to the bottom where it says podcast attendee. There's some other links on there. On the very top, the first link says the mystery of the lamp, and that's also a recording. So you just click on it and you can play the recording, and it explains the book. Then there's another link right above this month's special that says help the children. It's a GoFundMe account where if people want to buy a book or just donate $10 or $5 or $1,000, whatever they can afford, I'm giving these books out to schools with low budgets in disadvantaged communities. I'm giving them in to adult centers, to nursing homes, and to disadvantaged community libraries. And all of the money that's donated goes toward purchase of the book. There's no president to be making millions of dollars. All of the money goes directly to helping continuing education and child literacy, and helping elderly people in nursing homes. Love this book because they can read the stories, and then when they have their assembly, they can talk with each other about it, and it makes their life better. So the purpose of the book is to help people, and the only way it can help people is if you get it out and get it into their hands. And I appreciate you guys helping me do this.
Definitely. Well, thank you for coming on today.
So, I was going to say, Rob, go ahead and do your wind up, and I'm going to have Dennis do something to finish up the podcast. I'm going to have him up and read
I don't have much of a wind up today, so I just totally, when you put me on the spot like that,
come on,
I put you on the spot. Come on,
you're P.T. Barnum, man. You can get up and bark better than anybody I know. So come on now.
Okay, here's a good ending.
Go ahead.
If you want to make someone's day, let's say you just read a book that you really loved. Go to Amazon and find that book, give it a 5-star rating, and say, I love this book because. Now, you will have made the author's day. He got a 5 or she got a 5-star rating. She's going to be thrilled to death. But the other people that read this, finding a good book is hard to do, but if you leave a good rating there and say, hey, this is a great book because it helped me with my business, or it gave me, the answer to a problem that I had, or it's just fun to read, that's a good thing to do. And when you do something nice for someone, it comes back to you 100 times over. So just imagine doing something nice for someone every day. You can do that every single day of your life.
That's awesome. I like that one. Well, thank you so much, Dennis, for coming on. And if everybody who's listening wants to be able to see more huddles like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and make sure you go see Dennis and download his free ebook. And thank you so much for coming on today. Anything else you want to say, Dennis, before we close out?
No, I enjoyed it. RealImpactBook.com, or you can just go to Amazon and type in Real Impact Daily Inspiration and find it there.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for being with us.